in the parking lot before you get to work, just dumping everything, just throw it in the glove compartment, and then you go to work and you're fine, and then you go out to your car, and before you even drive away, you have to dump everything else and pick everything else out of the glove. And occasionally we're going to get it crossed up and we can't remember what we're doing. So it is just easier to be who we are. But on occasion, our own life does seem to almost take precedence. So to want to be fully present with someone is a wonderful expectation that sometimes is quite hard, but it is also a wonderful gift if you can give it. Thank you for sharing that. What's another expectation as a care provider?
To listen.
To listen. Ooh, easy or hard? It is hard. It is hard. Although most people can listen, far fewer people hear. Far fewer people actually hear. Most of us listen. We get the information. That's what listening gives you, is the information. Hearing tells you how it was said, what was said, the body language, the facial expression, the hesitancy, the positioning, the true underneath meanings. Very few people actually are heard. Almost everybody gets listened to. It's kind of like, yes, dear, I hear you. But in fact, I didn't. I heard the noise, I heard somebody talking to me, and I may have gotten the surface message, but perhaps not the deeper message. Thank you for sharing that.
Isn't that part of what you said about being present?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And when I have the energy, I am very present. And when I don't, I still try to pretend. And we'll talk about trying to pretend in a little bit. Yes, ma'am, you had a question or a comment.
I think it's important to have the knowledge to say the right things at the right time.
Absolutely. Although that would require a magic ball. But you're right. I think one of our expectations is to have the information, to have the education, to be current in our knowledge, to keep up with whatever the trends are, whatever the current thinking is, and to be able to impart that. It isn't enough to hold the knowledge. In fact, that's not even very nice, to hold the knowledge, but to be able to share it as well. Because many people would like to know what you know. And I have so many times, especially when I was a young woman trying desperately to take care of a child who was dying of a malignant brain tumor, and physicians would look at me, and it's not a dish on physicians, it's simply a sign of 30 years ago. They'd say, Mrs. Sims, you couldn't understand. And I would say, even if you have to write it in great big 4-foot letters, it's your job to help me understand it. And I'm not leaving until we do. Well, I don't know it either. And I said, then why didn't you say that one in the first place? Because it wasn't acceptable 30 years ago to be, it still isn't today, to say, I don't know. I don't know. That takes an awful lot of courage to be able to say to someone who expects you to have the answers, to come up and say, I don't know. I don't know. Absolutely. What's another expectation you have of yourself as a care provider? What do you expect? What do you expect? Yes, ma'am, another one. Well, sure.
Well, again, I put down being kind and trying not to control, because that's one of my genetic problems.
Oh, I think you have a lot of company. Try not to control. Easy or hard?
Very, very, very hard.
It is very hard. It is harder, however, to work on that characteristic when you're dealing with people you love than when people you don't know. People I don't know, you can be kind, caring, and competent. People you love, oh, it is so hard when you see them screw up or do something that you absolutely know is completely wrong. And it's really hard. It's very hard. In fact, many times it's impossible to not at least share what I'm hoping for you, what I know you need to do, what you should do, what you ought to be doing. What is the matter with you? Take my advice. And we end up becoming not a care provider, but a care pusher. And we're trying to push our care onto people. But it happens. It happens. Look at your third. Yes, ma'am.
Well, it gets me into trouble. And
okay.
As much as I used to do it, but I also have cried with people when they were in a situation.
Sure. Is that an expectation for you that you would cry or that you should not cry?
I do, and I get, depending on the situation, I can get some bad feedback.
Some bad feedback.
Because I am supposed to be professional.
I know. Isn't that to me is one of the saddest statements that I ever hear in the professional world. That means professionals aren't allowed to feel. That means professionals. That means as our professional. It means you have to put on this hat. And when you put on the hat, you have to put the heart away. But that was the original training. In my own original training as a psychologist 35 years ago, we were told, never get involved. Maintain a disinterested distance. Who wants to talk to someone who doesn't care? Who wants to, you go talk to the curtains. You know, they at least are going to absorb, you know, some kind of molecules.